Well, hi there. This is Phil Simbark from the Backgammon Learning Center, and the picture on your screen is my co-teacher and longtime friend and associate, John O'Hagan. Say hello, John.
Hello.
Okay, so there's a reason I called John this morning. I had a lesson earlier this morning with a student, and we were going over some interesting positions that came up in a match that we were playing as a teaching match, and we got to a position that I happened to get right, and I say happened because I wasn't sure, and I'm absolutely sure that I didn't do the analysis properly. But you know, in a cube decision, you can flip a coin and be right half the time. In fact, Jake Jacobs always told me I was better off flipping a coin than trying to decide. But I think I've improved a little since then. But this problem is right up John's alley, and John has recently, congratulations for reaching the number 3 spot in the BMAB overall after Mochi and Victor Ashkenazi. Then comes John O'Hagan for number 3 in the world for recorded matches. I'm very proud of that, and I'm sure it's you can attribute that to the lessons you've given me have helped your games tremendously, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's
right.
probably why you're there. So I'll take full credit for that. Let's get right into the problem. And when I show this problem to you, I suggest that you pause the video and try and work it out for yourself, what you think is the cube action in this situation, and then come back and let's hear what John's approach is, and then we can talk about this a little bit further. So John has not seen this. This is a new test for John. To set the stage, it's a 7-point match, and red is leading 3 away, 4 away, holding a 2 cube, and red is on roll and trying to decide whether he should redouble or not. And of course, what we need to figure out is whether or not red should redouble and whether or not blue should take or pass. So this is the problem. Again, I recommend you pause the video and figure out what you would do and why. But I want to hear, I don't think there's anybody better in the world than John, and I hope I don't embarrass you, but you did it wrong, but I have a lot of confidence in you here, to decide whether or not you should redouble and whether or not blue should take. So John, before you actually tell us the answer, what is your approach? What is your thinking about cubes like this?
Well, you always start with the Woolsey rule. Are you sure the opponent has a take? So in order to answer that, you need to look at the score and determine what the blue's take point is at this score. So if blue passes, he's down 4 away Crawford, which is 18.5, 19%, somewhere in that range. So does blue win this that often? And here you've got 20 numbers that jump out, and you win the vast majority of those. The other 16, though, you have to break your board. And then the game's, blue might be a favorite, or maybe it's real close, to even money kind of a game. Let's see, 4-4 is really bad. 3-3 is really bad, as you have to break 2 points in your board with each of those. Let's see here. And then if you roll like a normal non-5 or 6, 2 times in a row, you'll have to give up your 6 point the first time and probably your 5 point the turn after that. So that'll be really bad. So the 18.5 or 19% of 36 games would be roughly 6.5 to 7 games. And of the 16 that failed to come out for red, I think blue wins, some of those, wins at least that number right there. And then when you do roll a 5 or 6, there's a small chance that you, for roll after roll after roll, you fail to roll another 5 or 6 and you might crash. Or maybe you'll leave a shot and the bear off, get hit, and lose. So my answer is yes, it is a take. And should blue or should red redouble? There's a small chance at a gammon, which would win the game, or which would win the match outright. got 6 outfield pips he has to enter and then get that checker around, and then those 4 on a 7 and 8 point in. On the other hand, the 20 numbers that do come out do lose your market. My guess is it's no redouble take.
Okay, let me ask you what, by the way, you are right, and I'll show you the answer in just a second, and you covered all the bases brilliantly, of course, as you always do. If you,
No, I don't.
If you did come out, are you too good, or are you going to, let's say you roll a 6-1. Are you too good then?
Well, let's see, what's the gammon value here with the cube on 2? Single game win makes you, say, 81. Single game loss makes you 40. And a gammon win wins the match with 100. That's 19 over 41, which is a little less than 1/2. Probably a little too good, yeah, but okay. I'm sure it's fairly close.
So I chose not to double, and it was correct. And I saw how you calculated the take point over the board. I simply have memorized it from the chart that you and I put together. This is a chart I send all the students, and I simply have it memorized that the recube take point for the trailer is 19% and the leader is 40. I've got these all memorized in my head.
Okay.
You probably do too, but you decided to do the calculation for the benefit of the fans. Is that correct?
Well, no, actually, when it comes to recubes, I always just calculate it out, just like I did when both sides are 5 or less away from the match.
Well, I did a trick that actually you taught me that I used 25, 33, 25, which is the recube take point for 5 away, 4 away, 4 away, and 3 away, 3 away. And then for the other numbers, I've simply studied them and memorized them. But I knew I knew that Blue's retake was take point was 19, so I knew it was a very, very easy take, and that's part of what convinced me not to recube. I didn't do all the other calculations that you did. I didn't even think of the idea that I might win gammons as part of the equation, and you're right. Let's just see what happens, by the way, if you do roll a 6-1. I'm curious. Let's say you don't roll, and you roll a 6 and come out. Let's see if it is too good. I'm not sure. Yeah, you're right, but just barely. You said you weren't sure.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Yeah.
So that is a factor. And obviously, if you had come out with 2, like a 6-5, then I'm pretty sure you would be too good by a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Your chance of crashing now would be a blunder. So you're absolutely right. Your calculation and your approach is right. And I think the big lesson here to anyone watching is that this is what we teach at the Backgammon Learning Center. Use the process every time. I always start with Woolsey's Law. You call it Woolsey's Rule. I call it Woolsey's Law. Same thing. Always ask first if your opponent is taking, because if you're not sure he's taking, it makes your decision very, very easy. If you're not sure whether he has a take or pass, it's almost always a double. If you're sure it's a pass, it's a double, unless you're too good to double. And then, as John showed, when you're sure it's a take, then you have to figure out if you have a double or not, which can be more complicated. But I have a whole new law for you. I have a whole new concept, John. This is something I'm sure you haven't heard. Yesterday, I did an interview with Dirk Sheeman, and I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. It's on YouTube. I encourage you all to go watch that interview. But after the interview, Dirk and I talked a little bit more, and we were talking about some other kinds of positions, and he gave me a tool that he uses, and we're going to call it Sheeman's Law. It's his new tool. And his tool is this. If he's thinking about whether or not to double, he asks himself, he says, I'm going to pretend that one of the 2 decisions is a blunder. Which one is most likely to be a blunder? By pretending there's a big difference, that one of them might be a blunder, that usually makes, even if it isn't, turns out to be very close and one of them isn't, that usually pushes you very hard in one direction or another.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think it's a real good approach, and in this case, I actually used it. I said, it could be a blunder to double this, and I don't think it would be a blunder not to. That was my conclusion based on the fact that his take point was so low. Now, I did a little bit more study with this, and I'm not going to waste your time or take up more of your time because you've been so generous so often with your time. And by the way, I do want to remind everybody that Saturday morning at the Las Vegas tournament, John and I are going to give a lecture that I think most people will find very, very interesting. But I want to tell you that what makes this very, very interesting is that at different scores, because of the different take points and because of the other values involved, the cube action changes drastically. This is not a double. If the score is 4 away, take a look at this. I have to do this to get the answer. I'm not going to ask John to go through all the calculations. It's a monster redouble at 4 away because, again, his take point is higher, and we're getting closer to his take point, and you have more to gain when the score is even, when you're a favorite. You're clearly a favorite here, and you'd rather be playing for the match than playing for 2 points. At 3 away, let me show you here. And again, I trust John to be able to work this all out, but at 3 away, it's a clear double and a take. And then if the score was reversed and you're trailing 3 away, 4 away, it's barely a take, because the take point is very, very, as I said earlier, 25, 33, 25, with the take point. Well, let's take a look here. I'm sorry, this is a big pass, because the take point is 40%, as I recall, when you're the leader at 3 away, 4 away.
Right.
It's really very interesting. With a slight change in the score, this exact same position changes the cube action quite a bit. So you need to know your take points. You need to know, I don't think the estimating wins here is that hard, because you pretty much win when you roll a 5 or a 6, and pretty much lose when you don't. not pretty much lose, but when you don't. Let's take a look at that too. Let's take a look at, let's put it at money so that we're not getting confused with the score. And let's see what happens after you crash. Let's say you roll a 4-3 and blue is on roll. Let's see what blue's winning chances are from here. You said you think it's maybe about even, about an even game.
Yeah, you need to put blue on roll here.
I did.
There you go. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I put blue on roll. And so actually blue's actually a pretty big favorite after the crash.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Of course, there's better crashes than that. There's crashes that keep red higher, which give red a little bit more time, and now we're getting closer to 60-40. But I think that's one of the big reasons why it isn't a double. So Woolsey's law, and by the way, you didn't say it, but O'Hagan's law, how many market losers do you have in a normal situation? If you lose your market, according to O'Hagan's law, a net of 25%, you should double, but that changes quite a bit at different scores. But the combination...
Well, also that's for a cube to 2 in a money game, whereas here you're talking about redoubling in a match where you're ahead.
Yeah.
So that's very different. Yeah.
So it is very different. But in normal situations, I use Woolsey's law, O'Hagan's law. I also am very proud of that I named it Simborg's law, which is I ask myself, if all else fails and I'm not sure what to do, I ask myself how I would feel if I was the opponent about getting cubed or not, and do whatever would make him feel the most uncomfortable. And now we have Schemann's law, which I think is also very, very helpful. And by the way, Schemann's law also works for when you're trying to decide whether to take or not. Which one is the likely to be a blunder? Do you think it would be a blunder to take or a blunder to pass? Which is more likely to be a blunder, and that will push you. And I'm not sure that doesn't work for checker play yet. I haven't tried it, but which checker play do you think is more likely to be a blunder might help you find the right checker play too. I think he's come up with something pretty brilliant. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I'll have to keep that in mind. Yeah. Well, we all learn something while we teach, and working with people like Dirk, who has joined our Backgammon Learning Center team. He's going to be teaching primarily in English and German, and only very high-level players. And John is also teaching very high-level players as well as intermediates, because he enjoys it and has time to do teaching. So if you're interested, go to www.thebackgammonlearningcenter.com, and you can find out about how we teach and our methods. And I think you saw today a real demonstration. I give you my word that John never saw this position until the second you all saw it on the screen today, and he's able to get it right, and he's yet to fail me. I can't remember a time where I've done a video or done a test to John where he got it wrong, so that's pretty impressive. John, I will see you in Las Vegas, and thank you very much for doing this.
Okay, sounds good, Phil. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.